The mud of the Ardennes clung to everything. It was October 28, 1944, and the air was a raw, biting blend of damp earth and distant cordite. Near the German-held Belgian border, crouched in a small dense copse of pine, were 14 figures, the OSS Black Dagger team. Leading them was Ruth Hawthorne, though they knew her only by her operative call sign, the Ghost. At 28, Ruth was a study in lethal contradictions. She possessed the icy precision of a skilled surgeon and the silent, predatory grace of an apex hunter. She was not a brute force soldier. She was a scalpel, a specialist in retrieval and, when necessary, permanent disappearance. Her legend was built on missions that left no bodies, no witnesses, and no paper trails. Their target today was a scar of concrete gouged into the side of a low hill, Bunker A42. All initial reconnaissance pointed to a heavy artillery post, but intercepted radio chatter, a complex, layered code that took the Army's best 2 weeks to crack, suggested something far more sinister. It wasn't a weapons stockpile, it was a research facility and, chillingly, a personnel processing center. The radio logs mentioned Phase 3 completion and Valkyrie security roster. Major Brandt whispered, checking the bolt on his submachine gun. Whatever they're running in there, they're finishing it. Ruth didn't reply. She was kneeling at the bunker entrance, a heavy steel slab protected by a small reinforced trench. She could feel the wrongness of the place, a cold, sterile malice that radiated even through the concrete. The breach was textbook, silent, swift, and brutal. Ruth moved with inhuman speed, neutralizing the 2 perimeter guards before they could draw a breath, letting the silent hiss of nerve agent be the only sound. The Black Dagger team slipped inside, their 13 shadows following Ruth's lead into the damp, echoing darkness. The bunker's interior was not a military barracks. It was a sterile labyrinth of white tile, flickering fluorescent lights, and steel doors marked with cryptic labels. Deep in the sublevels, they found the true purpose of A42. Not chemical warfare, not atomic research, but Operation Chimera, a massive state-sponsored effort to give high-value Nazi personnel, scientists, SS officers, and intelligence chiefs entirely new lives. New medical records, new dental work, new families, new languages learned through intensive psychological reconditioning. They were being turned into sleeper agents, ready to assume positions of power across the Allied world once the war ended. They found the staff, 6 SS doctors and 4 technicians cowering in the main office, surrounded by stacks of official-looking papers, forged passports, detailed family histories in English, French, and Spanish, and a massive ledger-style book lying open on a metal desk. Major Grant reached for the ledger, but before he could touch it, Ruth barked a single urgent word: "Stop!" It was too late. One of the SS doctors, a pale man with a gold ring, triggered the silent alarm. The steel doors slammed shut, locking the team in. More chillingly, the German staff suddenly Dalmatian threw tiny concealed weapons and opening fire on the Americans. The ensuing fight in the confined space was quick, chaotic, and devastating. Ruth eliminated the German staff in a flash of precise close-quarters violence, but at a terrible cost. When the smoke cleared and the air was still, Ruth Hawthorne stood alone over the bodies of the SS officers and the 13 American soldiers who had entered with her.
All dead, killed in a desperate crossfire, their lives traded for the survival of one critical document, the Chimera Ledger. Ruth, her face a mask of ash and blood, seized the book. It was the master list of every asset, every new identity, every infiltration point. The future of the West was contained in its pages. She knew instantly that this was a secret too dangerous for the chain of command. A single leak, a single spy, and the entire network would scatter, burrowing deeper into post-war society. The only way to win this long-game war was to fight it alone. She found the bunker's central control room, smashed the communication systems, and initiated the self-destruct sequence meant for extreme circumstances. 6 hours after entering, when the American artillery commander on the surface had almost given up hope, the heavy steel door of A-42 finally groaned open. Ruth Hawthorne stumbled out. She was intact, but shattered, drenched in the gore of friends and enemies, clutching the leather-bound ledger beneath her uniform jacket. She refused to speak. She refused to look anyone in the eye. The army medics, unable to reconcile the ghost with this mute, traumatized husk, diagnosed total psychic collapse and put her under armed guard at a field hospital. 3 nights later, the guard was found sound asleep. The bed was empty. Ruth Hawthorne, the ghost, had vanished, taking the terrifying secrets of Bunker 842 with her. The army, fearing a massive conspiracy had turned her best agent, quickly declared her killed in action, sealed A-42 with concrete, and classified all records of the mission for half a century. The truth, however, was that she had just embarked on her new war, a one-woman hunt for 43 ghosts who didn't know they were already marked for death. The Indianapolis sun of 1994 was a gentle thing, washing the modest suburban ranch house in a warm, late summer glow. Inside, the world had gone quiet. Dorothy Merrill's, nee Ruth Hawthorne, was gone. She had died peacefully in her sleep, a beloved, if slightly eccentric, local figure, known for her prize-winning rose bushes and her firm preference for privacy. Her house was precisely ordered, almost pathologically so. Every plate was stacked perfectly, every spice jar alphabetized. It was only when Clara reached the master bedroom that she hit an anomaly. Beneath the antique rug, tucked into a corner of the closet, the wood floorboards were slightly mismatched. Clara's curiosity, honed by years of archival research, got the better of her. Using a screwdriver, she worked the loose boards free, revealing not a vault, but a shallow, recessed space lined with heavy-gauge steel. Inside sat one single object, a battered, olive-drab footlocker. It smelled of old metal and gun oil. Clara knelt, her fingers tracing the stenciled initials, faded but still visible. R.H. She forced the rustic clasp open. The contents were an immediate, shocking contradiction to the life Dorothy Mills had lived. A perfectly maintained Walter P. 30-gauge pistol, World War II era, wrapped in a chemise-cloth alongside a cylindrical silencer. It was not a keepsake. The weapon was oiled and ready. A stack of 43 black and white photographs, secured with an ancient rubber band. They were headshots, most of them grainy, of men in German uniforms, SS officers, Wehrmacht captains, high-ranking administrators. Each photo had a neat red X scrawled across the face. A series of manila envelopes containing meticulously detailed surveillance notes on dozens of seemingly ordinary civilians, mostly elderly, living across Europe and North America. Names, addresses, phone numbers, established routines, travel patterns, all recorded with the chilling precision of a career intelligence officer. Finally, a thick leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age, the cover stamped with the year 1944. Clary's hands trembled as she opened the journal. The first page was a dedication, a brutal erasure of identity that chilled her to the core. My name was Ruth Hawthorne. I was the ghost. I didn't dine in our bunker. I found something that made me disappear. The following pages detailed the full horrifying truth of Bunker A42, the massacre, the Chimera Ledger, and Ruth's impossible choice. But the second half of the journal was not a war memoir. It was a ledger of judgment, chronicling 50 years of covert action by the woman the world believed was dead. Each entry began with a name from the stolen roster, followed by the identity they had assumed. Case 1, Otto Schultz. Target identity, Mr. Arthur Jenkins, insurance broker, Buffalo, New York City. Result, car accident, brake line snipped. Date of final action, 1946. Case 12, Dr. Joseph Hauser. Target identity, Tere Alain Dubois, Perche-Brest, Marseille, France. Result, fatal heart attack, unconventional. Potassium solution administered. Date of final action, 1957. Case 30, Colonel Reinhard Walz. Target identity, Simon van der Velde. Curator, Rijksmuseum, Amsterdam. Result, fall from scaffolding during exhibit setup. Date of final action, 1978. The 43rd and final man in the photographs, the last one with an X over his face, had a recent entry attached. Case 43, Dr. Klaus Reichter. Target identity, Senator Robert Hayes, U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee. Result, heart failure, natural causes. Date of final action, August 14, 1994. Clara dropped the journal August 14th, the day before her grandmother died. The senator had passed away exactly a week ago. A national news item. His death ruled a tragic, if timely, loss to the intelligence community. 50 years had passed since the ghost vanished. The world thought she was a casualty of a final terrible mission. The truth was far more disturbing. Ruth Hawthorne had never stopped fighting. She had sacrificed her identity and her future to become Dorothy Mills, a self-appointed executioner who, working silently and alone, had systematically purged 43 of the most powerful, deep-covered Nazi agents who had been secretly controlling the levers of government, industry, and academia across the globe. She hadn't vanished from the war. She had merely started a shadow war the world was never meant to discover, and she had just completed her final, ultimate mission. Clara Hayes backed away from the footlocker, the antique floorboard scraping beneath her feet. The smell of gun oil and old paper filled the room, but it was the overwhelming scent of the hidden history, raw, brutal, and utterly incompatible with the aroma of her grandmother's famous lavender sachets that made her feel faint.
He was a historian, trained to find patterns in the chaos of the past. But this wasn't the pattern. It was a devastating, sinuous narrative. Dorothy Mills, the woman who taught her how to play solitaire and always had Werther's originals in her purse, had been living a high-wire 43-year-long lie. She hadn't been an aging war widow. She had been a ghost killer, the self-appointed cleaner of the post-war world. The last journal entry detailing the death of Senator Robert Hayes, a powerful man on the Senate Intelligence Committee, struck the hardest. Heart failure as planned. The ledger is clear. Chimera is dormant, perhaps dead for good. The realization hit Clara with crushing force. Her grandmother hadn't just been preserving the past, she had been protecting the present. Every time a major figure, a respected professor, a prominent industrialist, a beloved diplomat, died suddenly of natural causes in the post-war era, it was Ruth Hawthorne, the lone operative, closing a file. Clara picked up the journal again, her eyes drawn to a philosophical entry written in the late 1960s, a moment of profound loneliness. They gave me the call sign to Ghost, but they didn't understand what that meant. A ghost is not a spirit, it is a lingering duty. I was forced to become an enemy of the peace I fought for. No one can know of Chimera, because the instant I share the list, the network is either compromised or it turns inward, destroying those I love. My hands are too dirty for the heroes, and my intentions are too clean for the villains, so I walk the middle path, alone. I am a janitor. I clean up the mess that everyone else pretends doesn't exist. The ledger of kills was not a trophy, it was a record of sacrifice. Ruth had traded her life, her love, and her sanity to fulfill a mission too big for any government. She had ensured that the foundations of the free world were not subtly corroded by the men who'd escaped justice. Clara had a choice. She could turn the footlocker and its contents over to the authorities. She could expose the entire story, reveal the dark truth of Operation Chimera, and in the process shatter the memory of her grandmother and plunge the world into a massive diplomatic crisis as nations scrambled to confirm the extent of the infiltration. Or she could respect the silence. She looked at the last entry again, at the words that served as both the victory cry and a final request. The world gets to believe the war ended in 45. Let them. My war ends now. Clara closed the journal slowly. Her grandmother had spent 50 years ensuring the peace. It was not her place to be the one to finally break it. Taking a deep breath, Clara wiped the footlocker down, leaving no fingerprints, and replaced the Walter P-38 and its silencer. She put the photographs back in order, with the final checked-off senator on top. The steel lockbox was once again invisible. When Clara left the house a week later, she left no will, no confession, and no evidence of her discovery. The footlocker became an enduring part of the house, a secret sealed beneath the floor, perhaps to be found by another generation, or perhaps to be lost to time. The official records remained unchanged. Ruth Hawthorne, the ghost, disappeared and was presumed killed in an action in 1944. The quiet old woman, Dorothy Mills, was buried next to her husband, a gentle soul who died of natural causes. Clara knew the truth. Her grandmother was the most dangerous soldier of World War II because she was the only one who realized the war had never really ended. And by respecting her silence, Clara became the second person to carry the burden of the ghost's final profound legacy.
The end.